The living room was a blur of noise and motion, a storm I couldn't escape. It was my 35th birthday, but you'd never guess it from the chaos swallowing our Seattle apartment. Emily, my wife, had insisted on throwing a party, despite my pleas for a quiet night. Just the two of us, maybe some takeout and a movie. "It's your day, Jake," she'd said that morning, her voice honey-sweet but edged with that tone that brooked no argument. Let me make it unforgettable. I should have known her version of unforgettable wasn't about me. I stood by the kitchen counter, clutching a beer, the cold glass grounding me as strangers filled the space. Emily's friends, mostly corporate types in tailor blazers, tech bros with slick hair, and a few of her yoga clique with their perfect postures and fake laughs. I recognized maybe 3 faces. The rest were her orbit, not mine. I'm Jake Reed, a back-end programmer who likes clean code and quiet corners, not this circus of clinking glasses and booming voices. Emily, though, she thrived in it. She glided through the crowd in a red dress that hugged her curves, her blonde hair catching the light, her laughter sharp and bright like a blade cutting through the din. She was the sun, always had been. I was fine being her shadow most days. I liked steadying her world, keeping the gears turning while she shone. But tonight, that role felt like a cage. Her sister, Kate, was there too, perched on the couch with a martini, her eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Kate never missed a chance to jab at me, subtle digs about my boring job or how I wasn't flashy enough for Emily. I ignored her, same as always, and sipped my beer, counting the minutes until I could slip away. The air was thick with perfume and ego, and I was drowning in it. All I'd wanted was a slice of cake and Emily's hand in mine. Instead, I was a bystander in my own home. Then Emily raised her glass. The room hushed, heads turning as she commanded their attention. I thought, maybe, just maybe, she'd say something real, something about us, the life we'd built, the years I'd spent coding her startup into existence. Her eyes locked on mine, and for a second, my chest warmed. Then her lips curled into a smirk, the kind she used when she was about to land a punchline. "To Jake," she said, her voice carrying over the soft jazz humming from the speakers. "What my family calls our little family mistake." The words hit like a slap. The room froze. Then Kate let out a cackle, sharp and cruel, her manicured nails glinting as she pointed at me. "Yeah," she added, leaning forward, her grin vicious. "Condoms are only 99% effective. Jake's the 1%. Laughter erupted, a tidal wave crashing over me. Faces blurred, smirking suits, giggling yoga moms, all of them staring, waiting for me to join the joke. My face burned, my grip on the bottle tightening until my knuckles whitened. Emily didn't flinch, just sipped her wine, her eyes daring me to react. Kate doubled over, her laughter grating, and the others followed, their amusement a chorus that drowned out everything else. I didn't speak, didn't yell, or smash the bottle, or tell them to get the hell out. That's not who I am. I set the beer down, the clink of glass on wood barely audible over their noise, and turned. My boots were steady on the hardwood as I walked down the hall to our bedroom, their laughter chasing me like a pack of dogs. I shut the door, the latch clicking like a guillotine, cutting off the party. The room was dark, the bed neatly made, Emily's perfume bottles glinting on the dresser. Our life, or what I thought it was, stared back at me. I stood there, my breath shallow, my chest tight, and felt something snap. Not loud, not violent, but final. I grabbed my old hiking backpack from the closet, the one we used for weekend trips before her startup ate our time. I didn't think, just moved. Socks, a few t-shirts, jeans, my charger, a toothbrush. Essentials. My hands were calm, but inside, I was shaking like a fault line ready to split. I zipped the bag, slung it over my shoulder, and glanced at the bed one last time. This wasn't my home anymore. Maybe it never had been. The party was still raging when I stepped back into the hall. Someone had cranked the music, and Kate's voice sliced through, probably spinning another story about how useless I was. Emily didn't see me. She was laughing, head thrown back, her glass tilted to her lips, the star of her own show. I could have stormed over, said something, made a scene. But why? They'd already said it all. I wasn't their punching bag anymore. I slipped out the front door, the cool Seattle night hitting my skin like a wake-up call. The street was quiet, the city humming in the distance. No one followed. No one called my name. I didn't look back. The backpack pulled on my shoulders, but the weight of their words was heavier, dragging behind me like chains I was finally ready to cut. It was my birthday, and I was done being the joke. I walked into the dark, each step a promise. I was gone, and I wasn't coming back. The neon sign of the Starlight Motel flickered against the Portland sky, its faded letters buzzing like a dying insect. I've been walking for hours, the Seattle skyline long gone, replaced by the gritty edge of a city I barely knew. My backpack hung heavy, stuffed with the scraps of my old life. $5,000 in cash, a few clothes, and a phone I'd turn off to keep Emily's calls at bay. The night was cold, the kind that seeps into your bones, but felt clean, sharper than the laughter still echoing in my head. I was Jake Reed, 35, a programmer who'd built his wife's startup from nothing, only to be branded a mistake at his own birthday party. That Jake was gone now, left behind in that apartment with the champagne stains. I didn't know who I'd be next, but I wasn't turning back. The motel clerk barely glanced up from his cracked phone screen as I slid $200 across the counter for a week's stay. Room 9 smelled of stale cigarettes and damp carpet, the bed sagging under a thin, stained comforter. I dropped my bag, sat on the mattress, and let the silence settle. For the first time in years, it wasn't suffocating. It was mine. I pulled out my cash, counted it $4, $800 now, and tucked it into a tin box I'd grabbed from a gas station. I've been stashing money for months, hiding it in a drawer Emily never checked. Some part of me must have known this was coming. The next morning, I made moves. First, I emailed my boss at Emily's startup a curt note from a burner account. I'm out effective today. I've been the invisible glue holding her company together, coding late nights, fixing servers, making her big ideas work. Quitting felt like dropping a weight I'd carried too long. Next, I logged into our joint account on the motel's ancient computer, transferred my half of the savings, $500, into a new account with a different bank. Emily wouldn't notice. She never checked the numbers. That was my job. I bought a prepaid SIM card, ditched my old number, and felt the threads tying me to her snap one by one. I needed work, something that didn't ask questions. Portland's construction sites were hungry for hands, and by noon, I was at a sprawling lot where steel beams rose like a skeleton against the gray sky. The foreman, a stocky guy named Miguel, sized me up. "Name?" he asked, chewing a toothpick. "Jake Carter," I said, shaving off my last name like shedding skin. He didn't care, just handed me a hard hat and pointed to a pile of rebar. "Move that. Don't slack." I nodded, my hands already itching to work. The labor was brutal, hauling concrete, driving nails, the sun baking my neck, but it was honest. Each ache in my muscles drowned out the memory of Kate's cackle, Emily's smirk. Miguel noticed me early. Not because I talked, I didn't, but because I showed up at dawn and left after dusk. One day, during a break, he tossed me a water bottle and squinted. "You're quiet, Carter. Running from something." I shrugged, staring at the dirt. He didn't push, just nodded like he'd seen my kind before. Miguel was older, maybe 50, his face carved by sun and time, his voice steady over the roar of machinery. He started giving me extra shifts, teaching me to read blueprints, handle heavier tools. "You've got grit," he said once, clapping my shoulder. "Don't waste it." Nights were for rebuilding. The motel's Wi-Fi was spotty, so I bought prepaid card from a nearby gas station and used the public library's computers after hours. I'd sit there, hands still rough from the site, diving into coding tutorials, Python, cybersecurity, stuff I'd touched at Emily's startup but never mastered. I'd always been a guy fixing her messes, not chasing my own ideas. Now I was learning to hack systems, secure networks, think 3 steps ahead. It was slow, but it lit something in me, a spark I hadn't felt since college, when coding felt like solving puzzles, not just paying bills. I shared a flat with 5 other guys by month 2, a cramped place with stained walls and mattresses on the floor. They were loud, rough, always cracking beers and yelling at the TV, but they didn't pry. I kept my tin box hidden, my savings growing, $6, $200 by spring. The city's pulse was different from Seattle's. Sirens instead of Emily's laughter, diesel fumes instead of her perfume. I liked it. It didn't pretend to be kind. One night, lying on my lumpy mattress, I stared at the ceiling, cracked like my old life. Emily's voice played in my head. Family mistake. Kate's finger pointing. The room full of strangers laughing. It stung, but also fueled me. I wasn't just running from them. I was running towards something. I didn't know it yet, but I could feel it. Solid, real, waiting. Miguel's words stuck with me. Build your spine, not just your wallet. I was starting to. By summer, I had a plan. Not a clear one, but a shape. I'd code my way out, use what I was learning to start something of my own. Emily's startup was probably fine without me. She'd hire some kid to replace me, someone who didn't know her systems like I did. Let her. I didn't need her world anymore. I had my hands, my brain, and $6,200 in a tin box. I wasn't the guy who took their punches anymore. I was Jake Carter, and I was building something they'd never see coming. The Portland skyline glittered through the library's smudged windows as I hunched over a computer, my hands still dusted with construction grit. It was late, the kind of late where the city hums low and the librarian stopped caring. I'd been at it for months, coding by night, hauling rebar by day, building a new life from the ashes of the one Emily torched on my 35th birthday. That night, her words, family mistake, still burned, but they weren't just pain anymore. They were fuel. I was Jake Carter now, not Reed, a name I'd shed like dead skin when I left Seattle. My tin box held $8,500. My muscles were hard from labor, and my mind was sharper than ever. I wasn't running anymore. I was planning. Miguel, my foreman, had become a quiet anchor. He didn't ask about my past, but he saw the fire in me. Over beers at a dive bar near the site, he'd said, "You're not just swinging a hammer, kid. You're building something bigger. Don't stop." I didn't. The library became my second home, where I devoured cybersecurity forums, learned to exploit digital weaknesses, and built secure systems. I've been the backbone of Emily's startup, fixing her sloppy code, but now I was crafting my own empire. Shadow Tech was born in that library, a one-man cybersecurity outfit run from a burner phone and a cheap laptop. My first client, a local warehouse, paid $400 to lock down their payroll system. Word spread. By fall, I had 3 clients, then 6, all cash deals, all under the table. I'd started tracking Emily's world, too, not out of longing but strategy. Burner accounts and public records painted a grim picture. Her startup, the one I'd built, was crumbling. The new tech team she'd hired, fresh-faced grads with big egos and no experience, couldn't handle the load. Clients were bailing, reviews tanking. I found a forum post from an ex-employee. Management's a mess. No one knows who's running the servers. I almost smirked. That was me once, the invisible guy keeping her dream alive. Now, she was paying for letting me walk. Her sister, Kate, was in deeper trouble. Her boutique PR firm was hit with a fraud scandal, shady billing, fake client reviews. Lawsuits were piling up. Her Instagram, full of vague, were pivoting posts. Emily's parents, Richard and Diana, were no better. Their real estate portfolio, fancy condos and vacation rentals, was a house of cards. Public records showed missed mortgage payments, liens stacking up. The market had turned, and they were drowning. Their crown jewel, the Seattle house where Emily humiliated me, was on the foreclosure list. I stared at that notice on the library screen, my pulse steady but loud. An idea took root, sharp and heavy. I could take it. I didn't tell Miguel everything, just enough. Over coffee at a greasy diner, I mentioned the house. "You thinking of buying?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "Something like that," I said, keeping it vague. He grinned, like he knew I was cooking something big. I'd saved $10,000 by winter, enough to make a move. The bank didn't care who I was, just that my money was real. I set up Iron Peak, a holding company, with Miguel as the frontman to keep my name clean. Ava, a hacker I'd met on a cybersecurity forum, helped with the paperwork. She was sharp, quiet, and didn't ask questions, a ghost like me. We funneled $7,000 of Shadow Tech's profits into Iron Peak, secured a P.O. box, and made an offer. The Seattle house and 2 adjacent rentals, all distressed, for steal. The loan officer, a tired guy in a cheap suit, nodded at my cash. "You're saving us a headache," he said. 6 weeks later, the deeds were mine. I owned the ground where they'd laughed me out. Shadow Tech was growing too. I moved out of the flat with the loud roommates into a studio apartment, small, bare, but mine. A bed, a desk, a window, facing a brick wall. I didn't need much. My days split between construction shifts with Miguel and late-night client calls, securing systems for small businesses who didn't know how close they were to getting hacked. Every job was a brick in my new foundation. Every dollar a step away from the man who'd taken Emily's punches. I checked the tin box, $12,000 now, and feel the weight of what I was becoming. Then came the first crack in their armor. Kate posted a cryptic tweet, "Wish we hadn't lost the good ones." #regrets. I froze, staring at my phone in the dim apartment. Were they talking about me? I dug deeper. Emily's startup had lost a major client, and Kate's firm, was hemorrhaging cash. Richard and Diana were selling off properties to stay afloat, but the Seattle house was already mine. They didn't know yet. I leaned back, the chair creaking, and let the thought settle. I wasn't just surviving their mess. I was rewriting it. Ava pinged me that night, her message short. You're playing chess while they're playing checkers. Keep it tight. She was right. I wasn't gloating, not yet. This was about control, about turning their joke into my victory. The house wasn't just a building. It was where they'd broken me. Owning it was proof I'd outgrown their cage. I didn't sleep much that night, my mind racing with next steps. Emily, Kate, Richard, Diana, they built their lives on stepping over me. Now, their world was cracking, and I held the hammer. Shadow Tech hummed, Iron Peak was solid, and I was ready for the next move. The 1% they mocked was about to become their reckoning. The hum of my laptop filled the small Portland studio, its glow casting shadows on the bare walls. Shadow Tech was thriving, a quiet empire built from late nights and calloused hands. I cut back on construction shifts, but still swung by Miguel's site to keep grounded. It was spring, a year since I'd walked out of Emily's Seattle apartment. Her words, family mistake. Now a distant sting, repurposed into my drive. I owned her family's house and 2 rentals through Iron Peak, my holding company, and their world was unraveling. Emily's startup was bleeding clients. Kate's PR firm was drowning in fraud lawsuits, and their parents, Richard and Diana, were dodging foreclosure notices. I tracked it all with burner accounts, not out of obsession, but insurance. They'd never see me coming. Then Sophia walked in, flipping my plans upside down. She was a financial analyst with a side hustle in forensic accounting, hired by one of Shadow Tech's clients, a logistics firm, to audit my security patches. My phone buzzed one afternoon, her voice cool and precise. Jake Carter, there's a gap in your encryption protocol. I caught a breach attempt last night. We need to meet. No nonsense, no fluff. I like that. I told her to send the logs and agreed to a coffee shop near Miguel's site, a gritty spot with chipped mugs and sticky tables. She was already there when I arrived, tucked in a corner booth, her dark hair pulled back, eyes scanning her laptop like she was defusing a bomb. I slid in across from her, my hands rough from a morning shift, and she didn't waste time. Here, she said, spinning the screen to show a string of code. They slipped through this. You missed it. Her tone wasn't smug, just matter of fact, and I respected it. I leaned in, saw the flaw, and felt a twinge of irritation. Nobody likes being called out. But she was right. We patched it together, our keyboards clacking in sync, her precision matching my focus. By the time we finished, the coffee was cold, and I realized I didn't mind her presence. That job turned into late-night calls, her voice steady through my cheap headset as we chased glitches or lockdown systems. At first, it was all business, firewalls, data trails, Shadow Tech as bread and butter. But then it shifted. One night, after securing a client server at 3 a.m., she didn't hang up. What's your deal, Jake? She asked, her tone curious, not prying. You're good at this, but you're guarded. I hesitated, unused to anyone peeling back my layers. Just a guy who builds things, I said, thinking of the site, the code, the life I was carving out. She laughed, soft and real. That explains the hands. Calluses don't lie. Sophia was different from Emily in every way that mattered. Emily was loud, a spotlight craving attention. Sophia was quiet fire, her focus like a laser, her silences comfortable, not demanding. She didn't push about my past, but she saw the edges, how I tensed at raised voices, how I kept my world small. One evening, over takeout in my apartment, she dropped a bomb. I know who you're watching, she said, chopsticks paused midair. Emily Reed. Her startup's a mess. I've seen the numbers. I froze, my fork halfway to my mouth. How? I asked, voice low. She shrugged. I'm good finding things. And I got my own history with her. Sophia's story came out in pieces. Years back, she'd worked for a firm Emily consulted with. When Sophia caught Emily fudging financials, Emily turned it around, spreading lies that cost Sophia her job and reputation. She's a snake, Sophia said, her eyes hard. I've been waiting for her to slip. That's when I knew she wasn't just a partner. She was an ally with her own score to settle. We started working closer, her forensic skills dovetailing with my security fixes. She'd trace hackers' money trails. I'd seal the breaches. It was seamless, like we'd been doing it for years. Together, we crafted a plan. I wanted more than the house. I wanted accountability. Sophia suggested 3 demands: a public apology on Emily's socials, a tell-all interview with Lisa, a journalist who'd been burned by Kate's firm, and a legal agreement barring Emily's family from ever coming after my money. Hit them where it hurts, Sophia said, her pen scratching out a timeline. Their pride, their image. We set it up through Iron Peak, keeping my name buried. Miguel signed off as the frontman, grinning. You're a quiet shark, Carter. One night, Sophia stayed late, papers strewn across my table. We just locked down a client's system, and instead of leaving, she leaned back, her boots on a crate. You're not just doing this for you, are you? She asked, eyes locked on mine. I thought of Emily's smirk, Kate's cackle, the house where they'd gutted me. It's for the guy I used to be, I said, the words slipping out raw. She nodded like she got it, and something shifted between us, not loud but real. She wasn't fixing me. She was handing me tools to rebuild stronger. By summer, we had proof. Emily's startup was weeks from bankruptcy, Kate's firm was under investigation, and Richard and Diana's empire was dust. The house was mine, but I wasn't done. Sophia found a foreclosure notice tied to their last rental, a detail even I'd missed. We bought it through Iron Peak, no questions asked. They're desperate now, she said, showing me Kate's latest post, a vague plea for better days. I felt the tide turning. Emily's family thought I'd vanished, a ghost they'd laughed off. But I was here with Sophia, Miguel, and a plan that was no longer just revenge. It was justice, and it was mine to deliver. The doorbell of the Seattle house, my house now, rang sharp and sudden, slicing through the quiet of a chilly Tuesday morning. I was in the kitchen, pouring coffee, the deed to this place locked in a drawer nearby. Sophia sat at the table, her laptop open, her eyes flicking to mine as she tapped the security app on my phone. The grainy feed showed them. Emily, Kate, Richard, and Diana, huddled on the porch like ghosts of the life I'd left. They looked worn. Emily's coat too big, Kate's nails chipped, Diana's face bare of her usual makeup. Richard's shoulders slumped. A folder trembled in Emily's hands. I set the coffee down, my pulse steady but heavy. Sophia didn't speak, just watched, letting me decide. This was it, the moment I'd built towards since that birthday, when they'd laughed me out. I bought their house and rentals through Iron Peak, my holding company, after their empire crumbled. Emily's startup was bankrupt, Kate's PR firm buried in fraud charges, and Richard and Diana's real estate ventures were foreclosed. Shadowtech, my cybersecurity firm, was thriving, pulling in enough to move Sophia and me to a new place soon, a lake house in Oregon. But this house, where they'd call me the family mistake, was my anchor, proof I'd outgrown their cage. The bell rang again, insistent. I didn't move, letting them stew. Sophia's voice cut through, low and firm. You don't owe them the door, Jake. She was right. I let the app record their unraveling. Kate pacing, Emily biting her lip, Diana whispering to Richard, who raised a fist but stopped when she grabbed his arm. Finally, Emily crouched, slid a note under the door, and they shuffled off, swallowed by the gray morning. I waited until the feed was still, then picked it up. Her handwriting, shaky. Please, Jake. We need to talk. We're sorry. I read it twice, the words hollow after her smirk, Kate's cackle, their laughter that night. Forgiveness wasn't mine to give, not after they'd made me the punchline. I set the note on the counter and looked at Sophia. They're scared, I said, quieter than I meant. She closed her laptop, her eyes steady. They should be. They don't know you yet. I didn't reply to the note. Instead, I planned. A week later, I emailed them from a burner. Dinner. 7 p.m. Thursday. Don't be late. No warmth, just an address, a sleek downtown restaurant, all glass and steel, the kind they used to love but couldn't afford now. I booked a private room, a controlled space for what was coming. Sophia would be there. So would Miguel and Lisa, a journalist Kate had humiliated years ago at a gala, calling her low rent. Lisa's grudge matched mine, her pen ready to carve their story. This wasn't a negotiation, it was a reckoning. Thursday night, I stood in our apartment, tugging at a black shirt Sophia picked. It wasn't my usual jeans and jacket, but tonight called for the man I'd become, not the one they remembered. Sophia smoothed my collar, her hand steady. Ready? She asked, her voice calm but sure. I nodded, the weight settling in my chest. We drove in silence, her hand on mine, the city lights blurring past. They were already there, clustered at the room's far end. Emily, pale and thin. Kate, arms crossed. Richard, jaw tight. Diana, eyes red. They expected a plea session, but I stood at the table's head, hands in my pockets, letting silence choke them. Emily tried first, her voice small. "Jake, we're so glad." I raised a hand, cutting her off. "We're not negotiating," I said, slow and deliberate. "We're setting the record straight." Sophia slid a folder across the table, landing with a thud. Richard opened it, his hands shaking, and their faces fell as they saw the truth. I owned their house, their rentals, their mortgage. Emily gasped. Diana sobbed. Kate paled. Richard's eyes snapped to mine. "What is this?" he barked like he still had power. I didn't flinch. "It's mine," I said. "Iron Peak. That's me." I laid out my terms, each one a stone. 1. A public apology on every social channel. No excuses. 2. A video interview with Lisa here, the full truth. She writes the story. 3. A legal document. You never asked me for a dime. I paused, letting it sink in. 72 hours. That's it. Richard slammed the table, face red. "You can't." I leaned in, voice low. "I already did." Emily's tears spilled, her voice a whisper. "Jake, what?" I met her eyes. "Because you made me the mistake. Now you'll remember it." I stepped back, Sophia and Miguel flanking me, Lisa's pen scratching. 72 hours. I repeated and walked out, the door clicking shut. 3 days later, Emily came alone, the folder signed. Richard's scrawl, Kate's loops, Diana's cursive, her neat print. She stood in the house, smaller than ever, and asked to speak alone. I shook my head. Sophia stepped forward, her presence enough. "You don't get that," she said, firm. Emily's apology was weak, tears falling. "I didn't know what you'd become. I didn't soften." "You didn't care," I said, and it was true. Miguel's voice cut through. "Men like Jake build their second chances." She left, the door closing for good. The apology video went viral. Emily's trembling confession, Kate's bitter admission, Diana's sobs, Richard's gritted teeth. Lisa's article, "The Man Who Took His In-Laws Home," spread faster, a story of justice, not vengeance. I stood on our Oregon Lake house porch weeks later, the water rippling under the sun, Sophia beside me. "You made it out," she said, her head on my shoulder. I had. The 1% they mocked was now the man who turned their laughter into a legacy. This house, this life, was mine, not for hate but for peace, earned the hard way.